Well, welcome to our the GLREA's Thursday evening Zoom. I'm John Sarver, a board member who's your host today. And first thing I've got to do, besides welcoming you all to the presentation tonight, is to thank our sponsors, the State Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, EGLE, Harvest Solar, Homeland Solar, and Sri Energy. And if you've attended these before, you know what I'm going to say next, which is, I know a lot of you are GLREA members. If you're not, would love you to join the family, which is real easy to do on our website, glrea.org. And that will help support our advocacy and education efforts. And, the more members we have, the more influence we have to try to advocate for a positive renewable energy policies. And so we've got an interesting program tonight. Davina Bryan and Steve Boe. Davina is the Michigan State Director for Farm to Power, and Steve Boe has joined us from across the lake from Wisconsin. He's the Wisconsin State Director. And, Farm to Power is a multi-state nonprofit that's an advocacy organization for farmers, and they've been doing great work in promoting renewable energy. So with that, let me, last thing is, please, if you haven't muted yourself, please do that. And go ahead with the presentation.
All right. Great. Well, we're so happy to be here and grateful for the time. Davina Bryan. I'm as John said, I'm the Michigan State Director here for Farm to Power. And we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan community of farmers, ranchers, and rural landowners supporting rural Americans and their right to make choices that are best for their land and their community. I like to say we have a lot of dinner table conversations, getting to know people, learning about their journey, a lot of times learning about their generational journey. I learn about grandparents on this farm in this community. And we take those stories and we highlight those voices in an effort to preserve the role that farmers and ranchers have played in meeting America's energy needs for the last 100 years. And we have boots on the ground in Ohio, Indiana, Arizona, New Mexico, and Michigan, and of course, Wisconsin. So with that, I'll kick it over to Steve and let him do his introduction as well.
Hi, my name is Steve Boe. I am the State Director for Farm to Power here in Wisconsin. I'm actually on the far western side of the state, so near the Mississippi River. Prior to coming to Farm to Power, I was a agri-science teacher and FFA advisor and still do a lot to help out with FFA. I work a lot with farmers and in regards to trying to give them the resources and information that they need to really make some, good decisions for their farm, and also give them a platform to communicate that message with people within their community. So a lot of our principles are about continuing the longstanding traditions of our agricultural communities and contributing to the powering of America. We do a lot to help preserve America's agricultural lands for future generations, and a lot of the farmers we're going to talk about tonight, adding solar to their farm is a component to help extend that heritage so that there's something for the next generation. We work with farmers to strengthen rural landowners' long-held position as community leaders and somebody that people can go to as far as being a leader in the community. And then also defending the rights of farmers to do what is right for them, their family, and their farm. And this is something that obviously I'm very passionate about it. My parents continue to farm. We do corn and soybeans, along with raising some cattle. And I work to help out on our farm. And I can see the presence of how what we do has an impact for farmers and the next generation.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about, and this goes back to those dinner table conversations. I'm going to talk a little bit about Vera, who is from Isabella County. I spent a lot of time with Vera. I went out to her farm, and Vera wheeled me around on her four-wheeler there for a little bit. I got a good tour of the land, and she's got a lot of it. She's got 167 acres. And that land was left, some of it left to her by her father, and her husband passed. So it's her and her kids on this property. And so Vera has residential solar, and she's really proud of it. She worked real hard at this installation. I mean, she's got all the tech language down. She knows what she's doing. But Vera also, I think this is a really important story, because Vera also is a real good example of what we've seen across Michigan and in other states. She sat on a solar lease very quietly for going on about 5 years, 3 to 5 years. And her neighbors don't know. And that conversation that Vera had with me was kind of the first time that she knew they would find out. And as she says here, 167 acres, 60 of it is tillable, and she leases that for corn. And some of that is leased for solar, and DTE just extended that. So, she's doing what she can with that land. She's still farming it, but the fact is Vera isn't making more money on corn than she was last year, and may not next year. And so for Vera, this was a decision, an economic decision that she had to make. So next slide there, Bo. And I think what's really important when we talk about, the silence of some of these farmers that sit in their community on these leases, chewing on some of these decisions, thinking what's best for my family, what's best for my property, what's best overall. How do I just die in my home, right? How do I stay here on this property, leverage an asset that I have the right to utilize? Is this statement right here? It's my right, she says, to make this choice. I'm the landowner. I am the one that's paying the taxes, and nobody else is. It's in my name. It hasn't been turned over to my son, my daughter-in-law yet, but for now, we're trying to make these decisions together as a family. And that's, before we hopped on this here, John and I were talking about how important it is to really highlight that these are hard conversations, that sometimes, a farmer is really just looking to supplement in many ways and stay in their community, stay on their property. And these opportunities often provide that economic diversity and an economic alternative that keep them in their home. And in Vera's case, her children aren't going to farm. So she's doing what she thinks is right with the property, right for her family and her community. So the next slide here, that's just one story. But the next slide here, one of my favorite farmers, but she is, this is Brianna. Her farm is called Beautiful Farms. And she's got sheep. She's a shepherd. She's got sheep on a couple different projects. So this is what we call agrivoltaics. It's like this buzzword everybody's trying to figure out, but it really is a symbiotic relationship between solar and farming. And Brianna is a great example of this. We've got a lot of examples of this happening too across the state. I think we'll see more of it. But Brianna is really remarkable in so many ways because she was not a family farmer. Steve and I actually met Brianna a couple weeks ago, and she was not farming prior to this. She married into farming. And what's really exciting about her journey is that she like grabbed the bull by the horns, and was like, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna put some sheep under these panels and I'm gonna graze. And it's been so good for her and for her sheep. And she's learning so much, and she's sharing her story in so many different states in so many different ways. But I love this quote. She says, renewables impact me because it helps my community. I take care of my animals. Solar has made their life better. They love being on the solar sites. They love the arrays. They're protected from the wind and the rain and the rest of the elements. And they come back home in the winter, but they definitely look forward to going back out to solar in the summer. So there's so many benefits, not just to Brianna as a farmer. She gets that extra economic opportunity, but she says, this is great for my sheep. My sheep love this. They're thriving. I wish I could do more of this. In fact, she's growing her operation. And she's just so excited and a shining example of what we'd love to see more of across Michigan and across other states as well. And I think we will. So the next one here too is, I think, agrivoltaic as well, right, Bo?
Yeah, it's actually kind of almost identical to Brianna. And before I get into talking about Bo Stafford, just in general, talking with our farmers who are considering establishing solar on their farm, for a lot of them, it is about economic stability and being able to have that consistent income that can help waver and ride the waves of the dramatic prices of farm commodities. In Wisconsin, we had our Ag Day at the Capitol yesterday, and one of the main items of discussion was actually farmer mental health. And a lot of that stems from, you know, farmers being under stress because of not being able to pay bills, not being able to figure out how the farm is going to survive to the next generation. And so many of the farmers that are looking and considering and, you know, penciling out if solar is an option for them is because of that ability to have that stable and consistent income that can provide for their family today, but also for the next generation and making sure that the farm survives. Now, Bo Stafford is located in Fitchburg, Wisconsin. I've actually known Bo for over 20 years. He's a dear friend of mine, and he got started completely by accident. We actually have a video of Bo that we're going to play here in just a little bit after I get talking about him. But to Bo's quote, now we pasture our sheep at the facility and can harvest our hay in the winter. Essentially, we have a larger farm and it's a win-win for us. And MG&E, which is the electric company by them, is thrilled about the progress on the site by the grazing of the sheep. Now, when Bo starts his story, he's going to talk about how initially he was actually opposed to the solar coming in because he was worried about some of the impacts. But as he learned about the solar, the opportunities, and the realities of the situation, he saw how that could have a positive impact for him and his farm. So I will forewarn that the audio is likely going to be very soft. And so you may want to turn up your computer a little bit. It's not going to be perfect, but it's the best that I can do. So hopefully this works the way that it's intended. I am going to fast forward about 45 seconds, and it should be just under 2 minutes.
So my wife and I graduated. It was important to raise our kids on the farm. And now today we've been we're in an area that's feeling a lot of pressure for development, and we have only 56 acres, and we thought, you know, we're just a small farm, we're just chugging along. But then there was an opportunity. We got a flyer in the mail for a solar company that was going to be developing a site that's adjacent to a property, and we thought, well, you know, we better be careful. We don't want them to plant something that might spread to our farm. So I went into that meeting pretty concerned for our farm and what we were trying to do. And when I showed up, I got there 15 minutes early. I was worried. Come to find out, I was the only one that showed up. You know, we talked to the developers. I told them, gave them a piece of my mind. I told them, hey, you know, if you're going to be planting stuff, make sure it's not stuff that's going to spread to my farm and affect my hay. And then eventually the conversation turned. They said, well, would you ever want to do hay on the solar site? I said, well, that'd be pretty tough because you're taking all the sun. You really need sun to dry the hay. And then the conversation steered toward, well, what about livestock? I said, well, yeah, you know, we've been talking about getting some feeder calves and maybe doing some beef cattle. And then he said, well, what about sheep? I said, well, you know, I have experience raising sheep when I was a kid. I never really thought about it, but yeah, that's not a bad idea. Then MG&E asked us, they said, you know, would you be willing to bring your sheep up to the site and graze it for us? And I said, yeah, you know, we get an extra 30 acres in an area where farmland is way too expensive to buy. We thought this will increase our tillable acreage by more than half. So we figured, yeah, let's do it. We pasture our sheep at the facility, and then we could still harvest our hay in the winter, and we could have a larger flock. So it's been a win-win for us, and for MG&E, they've been thrilled about our progress here with sheep and we're doing. So they've been really happy with how we're fulfilling the contract.
Awesome.
So hopefully you were able to hear most of that, but Boe was initially saying like that he had some concerns when he got the flyer in the mail that the solar was initially coming in because he was concerned about the types of grasses and the types of plants that were going to be planted underneath it because he worried if it was the wrong type that could infiltrate into the land that he was currently grazing. And because he showed up and had those conversations with the energy company, it allowed him to have some initial discussions about possibly grazing. And they initially talked about livestock and ended up on sheep. And so Boe, even though he is really just outside of the metropolitan area of Madison, by having this opportunity to graze sheep on these solar projects, he's actually been able to increase the size of his farm and also the size of his flock as far as sheep. And actually, when I last talked to Boe, since this video had been taken, he's looking at possibly grazing up to a couple hundred acres of solar fields in that Madison area with MG&E. So he actually sees a lot of potential and a lot of excitement in the future of solar and the ability for agrivoltaics in the state of Wisconsin. The next,
So my wife and I, Grace, we bought our farm in
my apologies, I was trying to get to the next slide.
2019.
Let's try this. There we go. The next farmer is a kind of a different farmer in that he's not with crops and soybeans, but this is a nursery farmer. He does Christmas trees and has potted plants here in western Jackson County. Derek All. He was actually approached by a local electric co-op about putting in 20 acres of solar. And we have the quote from him that they have a third generation family owned nursery and Christmas tree business. And this project has been a positive additional source of income for our family and our nursery tree farming. Like I talked about with a lot of farmers that I deal with on a regular basis, for them, this is an opportunity to create that income that is consistent and reliable. If you look at where corn and soybean prices are, it can be incredibly volatile. This is an option that a farmer has to be able to have that reliability every month that check is coming in and that can help them ride the waves of those up and down commodity prices. And so he is just like so many other farmers from the state of Wisconsin who are looking at solar and renewable energies as an opportunity to look at a forward face for their farm to make sure that that farm can stay for future generations. So, Davina, do you have anything to kind of conclude?
No, I mean, you touched on so much there, Boe, but I think it's important to really emphasize that, again, these are conversations sometimes in these rural communities that are polarizing. There's a lot of, there's a lot of opinions. Everybody's got one, right, to be shared when it comes to what's the right thing to do with farmland. And we feel, as do so many, all of the farmers that we're connecting with, that these are land rights as well that we're talking about. That if we've got a taxpayer, a farmer that's been in this community for generations, and they're saying, I need to do this. I'm looking for, as Boe said, I'm looking for a way to find some stability and stay in my community. In some cases, this comes down to maybe having to sell that land, and then what? This is definitely an opportunity to keep them on the land, to keep them farming in many cases. And to us, that's a priority overall. and certainly to them. And as we're having these conversations, we're finding there's so many individuals within their, who within their community feel as though they haven't had the opportunity to share their story. And like Vera, just say, hey, I got to find some revenue. I got to find some money, and I have to leverage an asset that I'm paying taxes on, and that in any other way, I think the community would say, go for it. But this has just kind of become one of those issues that everybody takes ownership of. And we're really here at forming a community, providing a peer-to-peer resource, saying, you're not alone in this, and you deserve and the right, as the guy who says, I don't want this, right? We're here to preserve that right too. But certainly the individuals that are making these choices deserve a right to share their story, to share their needs with their neighbors. And I would say overall, that's our goal, creating this peer-to-peer resource, creating a community, highlighting these voices, sharing these stories. And as we do that, I think what we're seeing is we're really able to humanize this issue. And that's so important. We can have real, genuine conversations. We can understand one another's needs when we just can lower the temperature and start talking about some of these things. And that's what we're hoping will come out of this.
And for a lot of farmers, we're not taking this land out of production. We're just putting it into a different type of production. I don't know the statistics for Michigan, but Wisconsin farmers have been involved in renewable energy for many, many years. A quarter of all of our corn goes into ethanol production. So farmers have already been engaged when it comes to renewable energy. It's just solar is another option for that land to be productive.
Yeah, those of you who want to ask a question, you can go down to at least on my computer, it's a bar at the bottom, and look under React, and you can raise a virtual hand that way, because we're on a couple screens here. There's 45 of us, so it's better for you to use the virtual hand if you can. If that becomes difficult, you can unmute and just kind of wave at us. But Dave, you have the first question. Go ahead.
Do you think these farmers are interested in increasing their solar arrays in order to gain more income on their farms and augment the grid itself?
The farmers that I talk to, and Davina can talk more about Michigan, but here in Wisconsin, the ones that are heavily considering the solar projects are not. It is increasing their income, but the more important aspect is the consistency and the reliability of it. Farmers every day look up into the sky to see what the weather's doing, because that is something that is a variable. But with farmers looking at these solar projects, they're looking at something that is a guaranteed for them, and that can help that farm survive through the ups and downs. So yes, they are looking at it as possibly increasing, but I would argue that there's more emphasis put on the consistency and reliability of that additional income.
Yeah, I would agree with Bo. I think what we're seeing in many cases is, and I go back to Vera, part of that story with Vera is that she had a special assessment, $2,500 assessment, right, that hit her. And so you're talking about fixed income, and as Bo said, unpredictable income. It's really important that you can provide some of that supplemental revenue, and you have that opportunity. So I do think we're seeing this as a form of stability, but also there's real opportunity there. And for a farmer who maybe isn't going to continue this generationally, maybe the kids don't want to take over, I think they're seeing this as the best option for them and their operation.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Yes, very good. Thanks, Steve and Davina. I came from the utility industry. I was responsible for developing some wind projects and solar projects for Consumers Energy and doing the permitting and so forth. I was the community engagement manager. Wondering, great solar examples that you reviewed tonight. Wondering what you might be doing on the wind front to support the development that so many farmers, make maximum use of their land for wind turbines and so forth. And we had several farmers up in the Ludington area that had 12, 14, 16 turbines on their property, making some pretty good money, a good crop, if you will, especially in down for the orchards. So just wondering what you might be doing on that front. Thank you.
We advocate. I mean, we advocate for both solar and wind, right? We need them all. It's not one, but to that, I want to point out, I'm not currently farming, but I call myself first generation off the farm. My father called himself an escaped farmer, and he came from this beautiful place in Michigan called McBain, Michigan. I'm sure you're familiar with it. But he left the farm, right? And in that generational exodus that we see often, that's like this revolving door that we see in these rural communities looking for opportunity. And I go back to McBain now, and there is a thriving wind project there. And that has contributed so much, not just to the individual farmers, right? But to the community. They've got new infrastructure. They've got a new school. They got new town hall. They've got new soccer fields. I had a woman put me in her car, drive me up to the town hall and point at this soccer stadium. She said, that was never there for my children. These turbines brought this here. And I think, we advocate for that. We advocate for those stories because overall, again, that's leveraging that asset. That's a farmer saying, this is my resource. This is maximizing this for my operation, for my family, and I have the right to do that. So I think there's a lot of examples of that. Certainly in Michigan, I know in Wisconsin. Bo, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I can say that there is a large wind project that is being proposed for Southwest Wisconsin. In fact, if it goes through, it'd be the largest project yet to date when it comes to wind. We actually just had an event down in Southwest Wisconsin where we invited a lot of the landowners that encompass this project and brought in Mr. Christensen from Nebraska, who has done a lot in regards to renewable energy with farmers, to provide some resources, some advice, some things for them to ponder as they are going through the negotiation process. And I saw the comment from Tom Stanton in regards to that there's a landowner who is interested in grazing but isn't having, or I take that back. It was Dwayne Watson who talked about that they're not getting anywhere in regards to talking about grazing with sheep and consumers' energy. That's where knowing your power as a landowner is important because ultimately you have to know the power that you have with negotiation. And we try to provide the resources and the connections and the information so that when you go into those negotiation processes, that you have all of the, to be fair, confidence, information to be able to kind of try to dictate and get that part of the negotiation, because that is something that is important to you and your family, potentially grazing. I know that there's a lot of farmers around here that want to dictate what sort of grasses get put onto the solar project because maybe they want to put an apiary for honeybees and stuff like that. So we try to educate farmers in knowing their power when it comes to the negotiating process.
Go ahead, Samantha.
Hi, just kind of following up on something that Tom had mentioned with agrivoltaics and people researching, and there is also in Michigan and Great Lakes states a kind of a business incubator that is trying to get sorted to fill a gap in helping farmers who don't have land yet and want to use solar to access land and do the grazing and make those connections with the places, well, we already have the connections that we're trying to get onto grazing in variety of solar sites, but we need some more stakeholders, and I just wanted to kind of throw out there that if people are interested, then maybe let us know.
Sam, you're doing great things here. I'm grateful for your advocacy, and I'm a big fan. You know that. So thanks for sounding off here.
Awesome. I love Farm to Power in Michigan. There's other, there's some organizations out there doing land and solar advocacy, and I think you guys are kind of the top of the pack in terms of storytelling and getting it out there. And we definitely would really like to keep working with you, figuring out what we can do with Farm to Power, with what we're working on. And yeah,
good to hear.
Don't be scared to take a drive over to Wisconsin. We have great cheese, beer, and brats that I can serve.
Put his mic off. Get out of here.
We're all coming this weekend. Well, Steve and Davina, as you know, probably from personal experience, right? These issues become very difficult in communities, and people get angry with each other. And I think a lot of the farmers who would like to lease land are kind of reluctant to upset their neighbors and be too visible as kind of advocates. And I'm just wondering how the two of you kind of try to deal with that dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we do what we do. We really, I think, and I go back to Vera, right? Because it was such a hard conversation for her to have. And you nailed it right there. She sat very quietly in her community. She knows how her neighbors feel. She was at that town hall meeting, right, where they were angry, and she got to hear them. And that's a very hard place to raise your hand and say, this is what I need. This is how I feel. This is how hard this is for me to talk about. And also these are very real issues that I'm facing, and I maybe don't have any other options. So what we're trying to do is in a way, right, empower Vera, empower others like her to come together. And if nothing more, know there's other people, right? There's other people in your community, because when you're entering that space and you're feeling that tension, I mean, we've heard about these. If you haven't been to one, we've heard about these meetings, right? Very contentious and not often friendly, and not the place for somebody who's, as you say, it's very emotional. It's very personal. Not always the place for somebody to feel safe communicating their needs. So we want to ensure that they have the information that they need, but most importantly, that somebody's standing with them. Somebody maybe shows up with them, or if nothing else, at least they're aware of those other people, that somebody on the other side of the state is experiencing the same thing. Maybe they've come out of it, right? And they're here to speak about the benefits, whatever that looks like. It's connecting her, supporting her, and making sure she's not alone. And these are very, very real experiences, very real feelings. And it's hard to see our farmers struggling with these things. I don't think the hatred and the nastiness that they're facing makes it any easier to have to go down this road. So, Bo, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Well, I would just say, like, when we've worked with projects, everybody believes that there's a financial incentive for the landowner, for the farmer. Like, they understand that aspect. One of the things that we try to do with Farm to Power is to talk about the other side of it, and that is the benefits to the community. So with a lot of these projects, at least here in Wisconsin and many others, oftentimes there is a community benefit agreement. So maybe it's the local fire department that is getting some financial resources. Maybe it's the school that's getting additional funds. I did a presentation over in Buffalo County where we talked about just if a couple of wind turbines were added to the township, what the kickback was for tax dollars on that. And the amount of money that town would have gotten actually surpassed their current budget. And so we try to tell those stories about not only how is it going to make an impact for that farmer, but what's the larger, greater impact for the community on these projects.
Yeah, good. Marshall, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for a great presentation. Super important topic. Farm to Power, you guys are definitely leading the way. John Freeman and I just returned from a homegrown power campaign conference in Minnesota where there was a lot of energy about agrivoltaics, and it was good to hear. Ohio's got some utility scale programs underway. Wisconsin, Minnesota, all doing some really positive work. And so I'm just hoping. I saw Tom posted about a July 21 agrivoltaics at MSU, but I was wondering if Farm to Power or Samantha, Craig, or anyone else on the call just can share some more future events that are being planned, how we can help plug in, and some target dates on those just to keep things moving forward.
Yeah. We've been hoping to pull something together here in Michigan, kind of an open forum, open discussion about what that looks like here in Michigan. It's different, right, than maybe out west. We've got other considerations, climate, across the board. What does it mean? What does this word mean in Michigan? So we're hoping that we can get that discussion rolling. I do want to highlight too, recently made a connection with a farmer up in Hart, Michigan. And he's got about 200 acres on a large project that's going in up there, and he's going to be putting sheep under that project. So I'm really excited. Those posts go in the ground this summer, and we're really excited to be able to kind of profile that experience and share that out and show the process. I think demystify some of these things, make sure we're sharing facts, and also the benefits that overall to his flock, how, to his operation, to the community. Just being able to share that, I think, it'll take, as we've said, one successful model. And I know Sam's been pushing that through too. She's there with that. And yeah, I think there's a lot more to be discussed in Michigan. And I think once we kind of get it going, it's going to catch on. It's such an opportunity for our farming community.
Yeah, John Gorley, go ahead.
Thanks, John. I live in Lima Township in Washtenaw County, and the Township Planning Commission is about to take up the question of a large-scale solar ordinance, the kind that would be compatible with PA 233. And there's a contingent of people in the township who are very strenuously opposed to any kind of development in the township, not just solar, they're not just objecting to wind turbines and solar arrays. They'll object to housing developments or industrial development. And this is really deep-seated, because I remember when I moved here back in the 80s. I'm not a farmer myself, but I was fascinated by the fact that they have in the township ordinances, one of their ordinances says that farm activities cannot be considered nuisances to any neighbor. Any legitimate farm activity is not considered a nuisance, no matter how much somebody might object to the smell of a pig farm or the dust from harvesting hay or whatever. It's not a nuisance. And so they've for generations been trying really hard to preserve the nature of this area as farmland. I wonder if you encounter that and have overcome it in any other places.
Bo, do you want to speak on that?
The reality is I do talk with farmers that have concerns in regards to what they believe is taking farmland out of farming production, at least as far as their mind of traditional farming production. And what I try to talk with them about is, maybe this is not for you, but it should be an option for all farmers. And when you talk to them in regards to property rights, that's where I've been able to at least convince farmers who may not be supportive as far as something that they would want to do on their farm and for their family. Not all the time, but more often than not, I can get them to really think critically in regards to, okay, if we start saying what farmers can and cannot do with their land, then where does it stop? And where does, if we start putting restrictions regarding to solar, does that open Pandora's box in regards to what I can do with my land? Does it work all the time? No. But at least in those conversations, you can often see the light bulb trigger in regards to how they can see that even though they may not necessarily do solar or wind themselves, how it could potentially impact their own farm and that farm's future.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Davina, I think I met you at the Farmers Union conference.
Yeah, we did.
last week.
Yes. Hello again.
It's great to see you. But
Yeah.
could you just tell us maybe what your relationship, your organizational relationship is like with the Farmers Union or the Farm Bureau?
Mhm. Yeah, we've had a lot of really great conversations with both. I think everybody recognizes we've got a lot of members within both communities talking about a lot of these things. So we've made some great connections, had, built some great relationships there internally. I know in Michigan, I was up in Tawas probably 2 months back, and I stopped in with the Farm Bureau District 10 up there, had some good talks about some projects in the area, and the needs of the community, and there were some good questions asked, and so I think Bo can probably say more to this, but I think that across the board there is recognition that as we're finding, as we're moving through communities, there's a lot of support for this, and there's a lot of need, and so I think we've got a lot of organizations having to find a way to provide resources and engage in those conversations a little further. Bo, is there anything you want to add to that?
I can talk on the Wisconsin side of things. I consider Wisconsin Farmers Union a fantastic partner to work with in regards to farm to power. And I have a lot of positive relationships with the Wisconsin Farm Bureau. Full disclosure, I actually worked for the Wisconsin Farm Bureau prior to teaching agriculture for about 11 years. So I have a lot of well-established relationships there. There are different concerns with both of those organizations, and we work hard to try to address those concerns. I've noticed that probably a little bit more with Farm Bureau. They're concerned about land being taken out of what is a traditional crop row production. And on the Farmers Union side, there's some concerns in regards to wanting to have a lot more local control in regards to these projects, and there's concerns in regards to having hodgepodge rules across the state. And so we work a lot to address those concerns with those organizations, but I feel very fortunate that in Wisconsin we have very well established and positive relationships with those organizations.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. I wanted to ask the presenters if they can give us any insights into issues involved with insurance for the solar fields and or the farmers, insurance for whatever risks might be happening on the land.
My first advice is you need to get a good lawyer. That is one of the very first things that I tell any farmer. The other thing that I try to do with a farmer is connect them with somebody who's gone through the process prior. What did they do right with their contract? What did they wish they would have done differently? Because a farmer should never, ever, ever rush into signing a contract of this magnitude. They really need to think about the short-term and the long-term goals and the usage of that land. Do they need to have access or an easement to be able to access additional land? Maybe there's a road that goes through it. Are they concerned about dust if it's solar? So really thinking critically, and that's what Farm to Power does, and I'm very proud of that fact, is we try to provide farmers with those resources and key pieces of information so that they can make smart, strategic decisions that are positive for their farm and their family.
Okay, Tom, did you have anything else you wanted to follow up on, or?
No, that was what I was
Okay.
trying to get at. It occurs to me that the Lansing area is surrounded by big insurance companies, and we need to be talking with them about changes that they'll need to make to accommodate the new world that we're going to be entering into, especially in terms of climate action.
Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I wrote a question in the chat. What I'm interested in is, I'm not a farmer. I grew up on a farm, but neither here nor there. I'm interested in the solar and how is farm to solar and other organizations, how are they getting people involved like me that I've got 3 acres and I'm interested and I'm old enough that if I look at the payback, it won't pay me back. So I can say, well, I don't like DTE, so I'm going to invest 60,000. But we did a kind of a walk down to the Capitol to talk to the legislators about having community solar, and I wonder how does that fit in?
Bo, you want to funnel that one, or you?
Sure. I can talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done in Wisconsin. So when we've identified, like when a farmer has approached us or multiple farmers of an area of a project that has been proposed, oftentimes we'll go in there. I'm fortunate enough to have 2 very dedicated and talented field organizers here in Wisconsin, Nadia and Maddie, our field organizers. They'll actually go into a community, go door to door, and to talk with those people to identify those who are in support and that would support the specific project. And we use that information when it comes to doing some organizing and bringing people together to have those conversations. So one of the things that we've done from time to time and that we are trying to do with some of our partners, we actually did this with the Wisconsin Farmers Union here not that long ago, was to bring people together to talk about the realities and the truths when it comes to solar and wind projects. So that's one of the ways that farm to power can have a positive impact with people who are not specifically landowners of a project.
Yeah, and I would think we should add to that too, quick there, Bo, that we don't work for developers. We don't advocate for developers. We work for the farmers. So our goal is simply to say, here's this farmer. This person's real. Their issues are real. Their voice is real, and we're bringing them to the forefront of that discussion. So there's other groups that dabble a little bit more in different types of advocacy, maybe connecting more with the developer in that way. But that's it's not, that's just not something that we do.
Go ahead, Samantha.
Just a kind of side comment on community solar, something that doesn't get brought up much, and I'd love to see Farm to Power advocate on, especially in Michigan. Community solar is a lot easier for farmers to get onto in terms of agrivoltaics and solar grazing and doing the vegetation management. It's infinitely easier to work with community scale developers and community scale projects, and it's a way. There's a small business, small farm aspect there that's just really hard to establish with utility scale landscape of Michigan as it is, and don't think it gets talked about enough, but it's
yeah. I want to point out to you, we work more, and Samantha knows this too. We do work more with utility scale. So our advocacy really surrounds a lot of those larger projects, but Samantha has some good points there. And I think our goal overall as an organization is to ensure that the voices are heard when it comes to some of these other larger projects. But I value what you're saying there, Sam.
Yeah, Lee, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad somebody brought up the Solar Farm Summit that's going to be at McCormick Place in Chicago next summer. I've been at that convention for the last 2 years, and it's very informative, and there's quite a few different points of view presented. One of the questions I have about that program is that its main sponsor is American Farmland Trust. And I have the feeling that if you read between the lines, the Farmland Trust thinks that there shouldn't be any solar panels unless there's agrivoltaics associated with them. That they see a solar farm without agrivoltaics as something that's going in the wrong direction. So I hope that that you guys can try to counter that and try to make it clear that solar can be put in, and if it's built right. In fact, Ohio State has coined the phrase "hay ready." It means you can drive through the panels from one end to the other. You can actually use the land, but it doesn't have to be agrivoltaics the day it's built. It can be built correctly, and then the use of it can be enhanced at some later date. So I'd like more people to use that phrase and be willing to build. And that's one way that you guys could help farmers by making a checklist and say, when you engage in this, here's the things you want, because we have an array here where the rows are 42 feet apart. Sounds like a terrific way to have agrivoltaics, except the fences are built 20 feet from the end of the row. Okay? You're like, what were you thinking? Okay? And so that's I'll be at that show again next year. And it's been very informative for me and a chance to talk to a lot of people from around the world.
I've heard great things about that summit, so I'm eager to go. I think we'll have a presence there. It's my understanding we're going to tap into that too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
really,
Steve, your colleague attended the Michigan Association of Conservation District meeting last year.
I did.
And if you can do the same thing in Wisconsin, it's a way to get some boots on the ground that are fairly well informed about local land conditions and soil types and things like that. And I think that we should try to work on their attitude so that they're more willing to be proactive than just standing back and waiting to see how the chips fall. So thank you.
Yeah, one advantage I think Farm to Power has is you're a multi-state organization, so you have connections, especially in the Midwest, which might help with peer-to-peer exchanges and kind of sharing stories. So that I think is going to be a real strength of your organization going forward. And actually, the organization's been around for a little over a year, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. Done a lot of growth in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. We're getting close to 8 o'clock. Let me just mention our program next week. It's going to be in Ann Arbor, a solar story. Will Hathaway has Hathaway's Hideaway or something, which is an event center, and he's going to talk. It's an older building, built in 1901, and it's all electric, on-site solar. They're involved with Green Power program. And so it's a zero net carbon building. So, that'll be next week on Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m. So if you, hopefully you can kind of come back next week for that program too. But we've got about 5 minutes, so we have time for a few more questions and comments. Or Steve and Davina, do you want to have any kind of closing remarks?
I think we should point out too that on our website you should be able to find our emails. But I can, Bo, do you think it'd be valuable, or I don't know if it's needed, but to throw our email down in the chat.
Sure.
So if there are any other questions, or if somebody has a story to share, can reach out. But happy, to have you guys hop over and check out our website as well. You'll find a lot more testimonials on there and get a real good sense of how we're growing and what we're doing, across the country.
Yeah, please do that. That's in case people want to follow up with you with questions or ideas or whatever. Yeah, that'll be helpful. Okay, we got a few minutes left. Steve, do you have anything you'd want to say as we get toward the end?
Well, my beloved Badgers are out of the tournament, but I'm still a supporter of the Big Ten. So I'll be rooting for some of your teams here in the coming days. So
we got two tomorrow. Let's hear it for I'm actually hoping that of course both win, and that means they'll be playing each other again. So it's always great to have a Michigan State
they
matchup.
may be out of the tournament, but I might just have to add that we are the women's hockey national champion here in Wisconsin.
There was no reason to add that, but Bo happens to know my daughter plays hockey. I'm a huge hockey fan. I'm from Michigan. Come on, guys, we got good hockey here. So he's just picking on me.
Before we got started, we had a big debate about cheese. So
we did. Cheese and wine.
Yeah, we
have
topics
here.
We have
Davina,
to be careful.
have you put in your email yet?
I've got my email in there. Let me get Steve's in there for you guys as well.
I don't see it in the chat.
Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. If I knew what I was doing, I'd be better at this. Sorry, guys.
Practice makes perfect.
While she's typing that, I'll just say pin-conning cheese is the best.
What is this you speak of?
Pin-conning, Michigan, they make cheese.
Oh, I've heard of this. I think this came up in a debate recently. Yeah.
Yeah, great place to go.
All right, I've got my email up there in the chat. Let me get Steve's in there as well. All right.
Well, Steve and Davina, thank you for your presentation and kind of sharing your information with us. And I know that GLREA looks forward to working with your organization and all the other kind of organizations that kind of working in this space. And there's certainly a lot of work to do. So having allies that kind of approach the problem from a little different perspective, I think can be really helpful. It sounds like, this is kind of a simplification, but it sounds like you folks are kind of like advisors to the farmers and have the background and credibility to kind of probably have be able to kind of be very helpful to them. And so with that, I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight and hope to see you next week. So take care, everybody. Stephen, Davina, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Thanks, John.